Paramagurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarvagurubhyo Namaha, Shri Lakshmi Nrsimha Parabrahmane Namaha, Shri Lakshmi Hayavadana Parabrahmane Namaha, Shri Krishna Parabrahmane Namaha, Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. We are starting this section is a pretty hard section. So wanted to first start with maybe what I will do is I was thinking whether to start with a question or not. Okay. Okay. I wish I could complete this, but let me see. Let me share the screen. I'm going to share the screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, let me start the slideshow. Okay, this is lecture 21. Now I guess you can see this, right?
Yes.
Okay. See, this is a hard subject, so I'm going to break this into two classes. I'm going to first only say a portion of this, and then go in the next class, we're going to summarize it to finalize this, okay? It's hard to understand. The reason is we are not just covering Bhagavad Gita here. We're covering every aspect of Bhagavad Gita which talks about free will and determinism. That's one aspect of it. That's one side of it. We also should consider Vedas, Shastras, Puranas, Vishnu Purana, Bhagavata Purana, and all these Puranas. And what do all these Shastras talk about free will and determinism? It's a hard question because in different Shastras and different texts, different views of this free will are explained. So it's not an easy subject. So we have to break this up into two classes, I think, unfortunately. So let's start here. The verse in the Bhagavad Gita which started this whole process is Prakritehe kriyamanani gunaihi karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudhatma kartahamiti manyate. That is chapter 3, 27th verse. What it says is gunas of matter, that is sattva rajas tamo gunas, are making this person do all the actions. A deluded person thinks that he is the doer. Hence, this verse basically says the gunas of Prakriti or body are the real agents, not Jivatman. So this is said by Krishna himself. Does it mean the Jivatma is not a Karta? Jivatma is not an actor? So this is where the problem comes. And we have to dig deeper into this to understand if Jivatma has any kind of agency or kartritva in any action or in all actions. So this is a deeper subject. We'll go further. Lord Krishna himself has made statements with a different meaning also. In the previous shloka, here Lord Krishna's words appear to indicate that the jiva or an individual does not have any agency. He is not the real doer at all. The gunas of his body, his gunas in otherwise, because his mind could have gunas too. The gunas are making him do this way or that way. So he does not have any free will in the actions. That's what is indicated here. But if you look at other shlokas, adhishtanam tatha karta karanam cha pratak vidam vividascha pratak cheshtaha daivam chaivatra panchamam. This is verse 14th of the 18th chapter. What it means is Jivatma is not only the agent, there are 4 others in addition to him. That is body, that is Adhisthana, himself Jivatma is also an agent. The movements of the body is also an agent. That is, if a hand is gone, you cannot move the hand, right? Like that movements means it indicates that movements are independent. You can have a body, but still movements may not work. But the limbs may not be able to move. Movements. The instruments such as limbs and sense organs, all these things are instruments. If eye is not there, he cannot see, right? So he needs the instruments. Ishwara, or Lord, is also an agent. So there are 5 reasons, 5 factors that dictate every action. All actions we do have these 5 causes. Only a dim-witted person thinks that he alone is the doer. That is chapter 18, 16th verse. Hope you're able to hear and see, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Take, for example, one needs a pen and a paper to write. If somebody does not have a pen and paper, does it mean that he is not the doer or he does not have any agency? No, he is still the agent, but he is not writing right now, or he's waiting or something like that. So he's still the agent. So even if Jivatma is without a body, he could be a doer or an agent. So let us go deeper in this. How can this be? Lord Krishna himself states, action, cause, and agency belongs to matter. In another shloka, karya karana kartrutve hetuhu prakritiruchyate purusha sukhadukkanam bhoktrutve heturuchyate. That is chapter 13, shloka 20. What does it mean? The action, cause, and agency belongs to matter. Karya karana kartrutve, the action, the reason for the action, and the agency for the action is all matter. But the embodied soul is the experience of pleasure and pain which results from those actions. Oh, this is a very different kind of verse. Let's see what it means. There is a verse which says, Punyasya phalam icchanti, punyam nechanti manavaha. What that, it's not a Bhagavad Gita verse, it's a generic verse. It's a nice verse. It says, people always want good effects of actions, but they don't want to do the good actions to get the good effects. That means that people do have freedom. They're not able to they're not able to work on it, put their efforts in the right direction to get the right effect. Karta Shastrarthavatvat is another sutra in the Brahma Sutras. Vedavyasa says, after looking at all the works, a Jivatma has to be an agent. He is responsible for his actions. Why? Because in the Shastras, there are injunctions to a person saying that a person should do this or a person should not do this. And such injunctions are all over the Shastras. There's many Shastras which talk about these injunctions. Vidhi or Nishedha. Vidhi means the prescription that one has to do it. Aharaha sandhyam kurvita. A person who has a thread, that is who has gone through the samskara of upanayana, has to do Sandhya Vandana from days morning and evening, dawn and dusk. He has to do Sandhya, and also on during midday he has to do Madhyanika. That is a vidhi. So the moment you say the Shastras are giving rules that this should be done, prescriptions, that means that a person has a freedom whether to do it or not. If he does not, then there are some, he has to pay some, he has to pay for it. If he does it, that has some value. However, even though a jiva is free to do what he can do, he's free to do or not to do. However, in all actions, jiva is definitely dependent on Ishwara or Lord. He is not independent. That is also said by the same Brahma Sutrakara Vyasa. Paratu tat shrutehe. The Vedas have clearly said that the independence of jiva is derived, is given by Lord Himself. Lord Himself has conferred that freedom to the individual soul. That's what Brahma Sutra say. If that is the case, God is the real doer of every action because He has given the independence to jiva, and the jiva's free will is dependent on God. If jiva's free will is dependent on God, then why should the punya and papa incur to the jivatma? The sins and merits should not just incur to the jivatma. Actually, it should incur to the God Himself. You know the famous things, right? If a person shoots an arrow and kills someone, who is the criminal? The criminal is not the arrow. The criminal is the person who shot the arrow. So we have to assign punya and papa, sins and merits, to God Himself, who is the real independent actor of all actions. Wow, this becomes complicated. We should think about this a little later. This is a problem. This is a question somebody raises or anybody could raise. So here we consider the concept of the flood of anadi karma. The flood means there are millions of lives for this jivatma. In each of these lives, he has done millions of actions. And based on all these things, he has this ajnana, karma, sanchita karma, all bottled up somewhere. Because of this variety, individuals desire knowledge and efforts in any action are unique and separate. Even though God is the common cause which facilitates all these, because of personal, individual desire, knowledge, and efforts, things may change. He is the general facilitator. He is a common cause. But because of the individual's separate efforts, they are subject to sin and punya based on their actions, because they have taken their own particular free will. Using their own free will, they have done it. Let us now think about this, because Vedantins have also thought about this problem, but long time back, the Sankhyas and several other schools of thought, Sankhya's, Vaisheshikas, Nyaya Vaisheshikas, all these people have thought about this problem of kartritva. Hence, each system has a different view. The Sankhya people think that Atman, or the individual soul, does not have any kartritva. He is not an action, he is just a witness. The action is done only by the matter around him. Matter in the form of his body, mind, intellect. It may be in a way, intellect may or may not be, but matter is all over him, this individual soul. And the matter makes him act. So the real actor is not the Jivatma, but matter. That's what Sankhya say. The Vedantins believe that Jiva, among Vedantins, there are several different type of Vedantins. Advaita Vedantins are different, Dvaitis are different, Vishishtadvaita Vedantis are different. We are now talking mostly about the Vishishtadvaita Vedantis because we are considering Ramanuja.org here. So, Vishishtadvaita Vedantins think that Jiva is a doer, enjoyer, and a knower. That is, Jiva is Karta, an actor. Bhokta, enjoyer of actions. Jnata, knowledgeable person who knows what to do or who may not know what to do. He's a knowledgeable person. Now, think about what may be the right definition of this Jiva's freedom. As we know, Jiva's freedom and Jiva's predetermination is more complex. We probably cannot come with very, very simple summary theorems on this. But we will try to clarify what is complex, because still there may be more questions later. But if you want to have a simple model, we'll say, think about Jiva's freedom is like the freedom of a cow, which is tied with a rope to a pole somewhere. And that rope has some kind of finite radius. So within the finite radius, the cow is free to graze, move around, and do whatever the cow wants to. If Jivatma's kartritva depends on God, how is Jiva the doer? Is another question. Because the Panini Sutras in the Vyakarana says, Karta, the word Karta definitely means that Swatantra Karta, that means a doer has to be independent. If that is so, if God, that is the Kartritva of Jivatma depends on God, that means he is not independent, right? If he is not independent, how can he be a doer at all? He cannot be a Karta, by definition. This is what Panini Vyakarana Sutra suggests. But what Vedantins say, that is Vishishtadvaita Vedantins say, this is the greatness of God. He can confer upon the soul freedom. And freedom of soul is a metaphysical fact. No matter what, whether you use Vyakarana or grammar or anything like that, it doesn't matter. Jiva is free to a certain extent, to an extent permitted by God. And it does not hurt God's omnipotence in any way. In fact, it adds to the omnipotence of God that he can make another entity or millions of such Jivatmas as free to do something. So dependency on Ishwara and Jiva's freedom are not contradictory to each other. What does dependency means? That is, God confers, governs, and maintains the freedom of an individual. If this is the case, what exactly that the verse in the Bhagavad Gita means? Prakriti kriyamanani gunaih karmani sarvashaha. That means matter is the real cause of all actions. What does this mean? That means in the bound state, we have a body. That is, Jivatmas have a body. And Indriyas, that is senses, hands. Jiva alone is not the sole and sufficient cause for actions. He needs the support, or he needs the collaboration with other entities such as body and senses and others, and Paramatma too. So what this means is, in a predominantly sensual life and a degenerate life, that is a person who gives in to sensual pleasures, sensual stimuli, and he does not follow any rules or regulations in life. So all actions are prompted by sensual urges or stimuli from external material world. His freedom is curtailed. His freedom is sort of put in suspense, but he's still free. But he has let himself to be overpowered by the promptings of the gunas of matter. While doing so, he may be deluded that he is free, but he is most enslaved to his own senses. This is a very bad state for this individual. So a knowledgeable person realizes that his freedom is given by God, and but he knows that he has his own brain, wisdom, intelligence, which he can use at his will and still act accordingly with care and judgment. And he knows that he is still dependent on God. Hence, he dedicates his actions to God because he is the ultimate controller. While knowing that, he acts carefully according to the Shastras, according to what should be done and what should not be done. Why do I say according to Shastras? Because Shastras include the entity called God. And if you don't go according to Shastras, you may discount the value of God using some other science or some other logic. This jnani, intelligent person, sees the folly and delusion of the arrogant self-assertion. That means if self is asserting and he checks out and says, oh my God, my gunas are acting, I should not just be a servant to the gunas of my body or my mind. And he carefully takes the right path and surrenders to God while acting. So his action itself, a form of surrender to that divine will. Always humbling himself to the divine, he achieves complete emancipation. This is the essence of Karma Yoga, because he dedicates everything to Lord. Such a Karma Yogan will be free from anxiety because he knows what should be done has been done in the right way. And he doesn't have to bother because he has offered the fruits of action to the Lord, the agency of action to the Lord, and even the connection to the actions to the Lord. He is nirlipta. In Sanskrit, it says nirlipta means he is not
affected.
He is not corrupted by action. He is not affected by action. Like how the leaves of a lotus is not wetted by water drops on it. He knows he's just a tool in the hands of Divine Lord. Again, we're talking about Ramanuja.org, and the Nirvishesha Advaitins and Sankhyas believe slightly differently that Jiva is not a Karta or Bhokta. But Nirvishesha Advaitins have got a different viewpoint altogether. We have to be very careful. We can't mix these two systems together. We will talk about them later. This is what we are only explaining Ramanuja.org here. Again, somebody raised this point, or we raised this point, that the bowman is the sinner because he killed, not the arrow. This bowman arrow analogy is not really appropriate. Why? Let us think about it. First of all, the arrow represents the jivas, and God is the common facilitator like the sun. Under sun, everything happens. Sun is not responsible for every activity under the sun, but under the sun, everything happens. Due to anadi karmas, individual jivas act based on accrued punya and papa. That means their sanchita karmas. In their previous actions will affect them, affect their mental setup, their judgment, and everything like that. So whatever they have done in the past will give them punya and papa, sins and merits. Based on that, they will have some kind of intellect, and that intellect guides them. However, individuals are not inanimate objects like an arrow. Arrow is inanimate. It does not have thinking power, but people have thinking power. They can do judgments. So God helps the person who puts the right effort. Hence, in a way, he is not partial. Definitely, he is not partial. So here, the woman and the sinner, woman is a sinner kind of analogy does not directly apply here. So what we say is Jiva has free will, but the free will is dependent on other factors. For example, somebody is free to run several miles wherever he wants. However, if his legs are broken, he can't run. So free will is limited by external conditions. So within a region or space, a person is free to do what? So there is some kind of this region, but we don't know how big this region is. Or the radius of the rope which is tying the cow, maybe 0 or maybe 1 meter or several hundred miles. We don't know the radius or the region of freedom an individual has. This is another unknown for us. So a person can achieve anything only if God wills, because God is also a factor there. So he alone is not the individual factor, but God is also a factor in addition to the other factors such as body, indriyas, etc. Now, we consider some different kind of cases. If a great jnani, right? A jnani is not just a textbook knowledge person. A jnani, he knows reality, knows life very deeply. He thinks that, yes, everything depends on God, and I'm dedicating everything to God. And he acts without attachment to actions or fruits thereof. Such a jnani will not be tainted by action. And if this has been said in the chapter 5, verse 10, Brahmanyadaya karmani sangam tyaktva karotiha lipyate nasapapena padmapatram ivambhasa. The same thing we mentioned earlier, like how the lotus leaf is not wetted by water on it or water drops on it. Like this great jnani, verily doing all actions here on this earth, will not get affected by actions at all. And such a person is definitely a very deeply knowledgeable person in reality, and just not a textbook knowledge type of person. Obviously, he has free will, but he dedicates his actions knowing well the limitations of his free will. Why do we say this? One can say, Brahmanyadaya karmani, this verse basically means that he has no freedom, he has given everything to God, and he thinks that God is doing and he is doing nothing. We cannot take that kind of an extreme view, because sangam tyaktva karotiha, it says, without attachment, he still does. Karotiha means he is free to do, but he is doing it. That means he has freedom. He is not totally controlled by God. That we need to understand. Why are we saying this? Because there is a concept called Jadavat Paratantriya in the Sri Vaishnava system. Certain people strongly emphasize this, that we are just like tools. God can use us in whatever way he wants. We are just like a tool. Totally Jadavat. That means we are like an inanimate tool. We are like an inanimate tool. We are animate, that is, we have sense, we are sentient beings, but we are as if like inanimate things, God can use him at his free will. So this is a way some people stress this point very hard, very strongly, but we need to understand what does it mean. So what they say is, we are not free to do any efforts or sadhana of any kind. Sadhana means karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, or any kind of sadhana we cannot do because kartritva or agency implies ahankara, some kind of ego. The feeling that inevitably an actor thinks that he is the agent of action. There is an issue of ego or ahankara. Since the ego or ahankara has to be completely eliminated, we should just get rid of ahankara completely. That means that we are not able to do any sadhana or effort of any kind. So this is a view some people deeply believe in. But we have to think about this properly. This view is more like an extreme emotion. That means the feeling of maybe elevated souls like Gopika Stris in the Srimad Bhagavatam, thinking that he is the doer, Krishna is the doer, Krishna is everything for them. Nothing else. They have nothing in this universe other than Krishna. And he is the power behind them, power behind everybody. He is the Atma, controller, and our actor behind everything. They can say, they can think that is an extreme emotion. But that is not Shastra. Shastra and emotion are two different things. The Bhakti Bhava of some people and the Shastra are different. Why? If somebody thinks that everything God does, then we should ask a question, oh, does he really go pick up the food and eat? If he does not have any agency, why would he do that? Everything is in Lord's hand, so don't wake up, sleep off. Even sleeping, you should not do, because you should not consciously sleep. So this emotional issue should be taken and left in the realm of emotion, which is a bhakti bhava, and not be taken as Shastra, which is a different. Shastra means it's a very scientific thing. It is proven by experience, proven by a real experimentation, and it happens all the time. Shastra is in that realm. So these two realms they are not against each other, but you have to take it in separate context. Some people think that, oh, the very fact that ahankara is the cause of separation from this omnipresent consciousness that is God consciousness, which is Brahman. So the very fact that we are feeling separate itself is ahankara. We are assuming that we are separate from Brahman. Actually, we are not separate from Brahman. If we think that there is absolutely no separation between us and Brahman, then we'll come to the state, oh, who is the worshipper, who is being worshipped? All this discrimination will go away. So a person can be at different levels of maturity, different levels of spiritual progress. So things affect people in different ways. So we cannot have a general rule for everybody on earth, because each of us, all of us are in different levels of spiritual progress. Hence, it is erroneous to think that I am free, since everyone is dependent on God in some way. The fact here is, the idea here is, we need to understand properly, I am not a doer at all. God is the doer, is a feeling people may have, some elevated souls may have, but the Shastra says in general, I am the doer. That is, the Jivatma is the doer. And it is not wrong to do the Swaswarupa Anusandhana. That means knowing the true nature of who we are. We know that we are the self and we are subservient to the Lord every moment. Our very existence is controlled by the Antaryami, who is the indwelling controller. We know that. In spite of that, we know that we are free to do what we want to do here because God has conferred upon us that freedom. And even that freedom has limitations, and we know that too. So this is the right way of looking at it. Shastra is a Vijnana Rupa. That means it is science. And emotions are important too. They are bhavana. And that is a relationship between a Jiva and God. These two should not be mixed up. We have to separately understand that both are valid. So what is the secret here? The secret here is whenever there is a strong conviction in a person that that person is separate from God, accordingly, this person has the tendency to do good things or bad things, punyas or papas. He feels he is separate from God, he is unconnected to God. Obviously, for this person, happiness and sorrow will occur. When this conviction of separation becomes weak, he starts thinking, he or she starts thinking, oh my God, God is controlling me no matter what. So his separation becomes weak. He doesn't feel that he is that separate from God. He feels the presence of God in every action and everything around him to a certain extent. For such a person, God takes care of that person. He will Esha Keva Sadhu Karma Karayati. That means he will help him do the right things. He will give promptings, secret indications, support that this person can choose the right path and then do the right thing. So says the Kaushitaki Upanishad. Esha Keva Sadhu Karma Karayati Imebhyo Uninishati. For those gods want to uplift, he will make them do certain right things so that he can uplift them. He can put them in the right direction. For those who have a weak conviction of separation, that they don't feel that they are that much separate from God at all, then God becomes the doer. He himself will do it. These are avatara purushas. They are almost like incarnations, very great jnanis, who are propelled, prompted in every action by God within. Hence, their actions are pretty much perfect. For such elevated souls, we can agree, we can accept the concept of Jadavat Paratantriya. They are totally tools, almost like inanimate objects, powered by God within. Their responsibility, actions, and everything are done by God within. See how this concept of free will and determinism is getting more complicated depending on a Jivatma's spiritual level. This is where the problem is. So that's where the complexity gets into this problem. For those who have little conviction of separation from God, that is, they know that they are separate from God, but they have little conviction. They still feel the presence of God or the power of God behind everything. For them, God becomes karayita. That means he commands them to do things. He supports them in their activities. He will make them do the right things. For those who have considerable conviction of separation, that means they strongly believe, quite strongly, I should say, medium strong, believe that they are separate from God. For such people, God becomes a sakshi or just a witness. He'll sort of ignore them. He will let them do whatever they want to do. He will let them enjoy their freedom, the so-called freedom. He just watches. But there are some people who are totally arrogant that they are the sole power and responsible people for every action and everything they get out of the actions. They're arrogant. For them, nothing else exists. For them, there is no superior power at all. God will go to the extent of punishing them because of their arrogance. They will know that they are not the real, responsible, independent actors in every action. Hence, there are different levels in all these. The Jiva Kartritva, whether Jiva is the real independent doer, independent agent of all actions, cannot be determined by just reasoning or Shastras or anything like that. One has to do tapas, meditation. How many people know how to do meditation properly? Hence, this is a very difficult subject. And God's Kartritva is also involved. That means God is also a doer. There are 5 reasons, right? We said Jiva is a doer, God is a doer, and the Sharira, the body, the activities, and the senses and everything becomes doers. They seem to be independent, even though everything is under the control of God. That is why the verse says, Daivam Chaivatra Panchamam. God only is the 5th cause, giving the entire importance to God. God is a very important cause. But Jiva also has Kartatva. So there is a complex relationship between God's Kartatva and Jiva's Kartatva. Both are agents. One is dependent, one is not. That is why Ramanuja.org says in the 3rd chapter, Guneshu Aropya Kartritam. That means offering, dedicating the agency of all actions to the Gunas, Sarveshwarevanyasya, or dedicating these actions to God within, depending on who it is. Each person can do different things based on that person's spiritual maturity. This is what Ramanujacharya's view is. This particular option, what if one thinks prior karmas determine future, then why should we put efforts? So this is a question. I'm going to leave this question open at this point because this is a little complicated and I want to be clear about this, and we will take this in the next class. But however, I want to open up the class for any questions, any live questions you have right now. I'm going to stop sharing. Any live questions on this?
Krishna, this is Srinath.
Yeah.
We have established so far that God does control, but also gives a limited freedom for Jiva to carry on his business. Now, how does he really control? Because a Jivatma or a Karta has an option to do or not to do, but like he said in chapter 2, Bhagavan said in chapter 2, even when you don't want to do something, we end up doing it. So how does the control part from God comes in here?
Very good question. See, the control part comes in here in the sense that God, see, for example, right? God, so this is a little more complicated. In fact, this is related to the next question we are taking up, right? Why don't we do one thing? Can we do this? Can we take up this question after the second part? What I'm going to say in the next class, okay. Immediately after the first few slides, I'm going to answer this question. I'm going to please make a note of this question and send it to me.
Okay.
What is the nature of control God has? Is a very good question. and that will be better explained in the next class. Okay, because if I start explaining, it will become very big, and we might use the time in the next class to properly address it, because there's a lot more material to be given to you to clarify situations, which will help you understand your own question better and the answers to your questions better first. And then, if there are any more questions, we can deal with it later. Okay?
Okay, I've thought of an analogy to kind of explain this question, not similar to cow tied to a pole through a rope, but I'm like, I take my child to the park and I let him play, but I'll be watching from a distance. My child chooses what to play, where to play, but when I think he's going to fall down, I go and then I either shout instruction or put him somewhere else. So that is the control I have. Now, bringing this to Jivatma Paramatma aspect, how does God control a Jivatma from either doing or not doing?
This is also a very good question. Let us note this down, but I can simply say that think about this. We are not the Antaryami of the child, right?
Yeah,
We watch from outside, but
very
God
true.
can watch from within too. God knows every cell of the body of the kid, every how the heart is working, how the mind is working, how the intelligence working of the kid. So He is from within. He has got this 360-degree view of the child. We don't.
Agreed.
So the control is of a different kind. So let us talk about, because it's getting more and more complex, right? So
Yeah,
we will think about this control more carefully a little bit later. But definitely the bottom line is Jiva has freedom to a
yeah,
certain extent. He has freedom, but it is limited by the type of body, indriyas, the type of, and also some effects of past karmas, right?
that's
So
correct.
that's where the complication comes. How do the past karmas affect this life and activities in this life, right? That's also another factor. So let's think about this in more depth in the next class. But I wanted to introduce another problem today. Unfortunately, I could not introduce a problem because it is, in about 10 minutes we have to close it, right? So
Okay.
I don't think I can introduce another problem and solve the problem. Let me take one more question here. Uh, Partha Srinivasan says, I did not get the link to join StreamYard, so I didn't listen through YouTube. I think Kartritva is complex subject and should become clear towards end of chapter 3. Yes, Kartritva becomes clearer towards end of chapter 3,
Right.
also end of chapter 18, because again Kartritva is raised in chapter 18, and it is more complex because there are, with all these things, um, uh, Lord Krishna has says, um, Ishwara sarvabhutanam hriddeshe Arjuna tishtati Brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra rudhani mayaya. This is in the 18th chapter. What Lord Krishna says is, the Lord resides in the hearts of every being, every person. And these people and these creatures are like robots with an external control and also an internal control. Brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra rudhani mayaya, as if by magic. How the what do you call the in an automotive runs by power of the engine or whatever it is. Like this, these beings are made to work by the power of the Lord within. So look at that statement. It is really mind-boggling. So are we robots controlled by remote controlled or controlled by within? My battery inside, that is God, and the remote control also, because God is everywhere. So are we totally controlled? So think about this. It becomes different views seem to collide with each other, contradict each other in some ways. But we are trying to get the essence of it, and the essence is complicated because of the level of spiritual maturity of who you are. who we are. The highest sense, a person is one with God in a way. That means a person is totally ensouled, controlled, infused by the power of Lord within, and that person realizes, and that person does not have any sense. Such a person's activities are different. There, God may have more control over all the activities, and the person may have very little free control. And willfully, that person has devoted, dedicated, surrendered all their freedom to Lord in every way. So how do we know? How can we even imagine with a limited knowledge, limited experience, limited vision, and with ajnana in our mind, we don't even know who we are. We don't even know what this Jivatma is. How can we talk about freedom of this Jivatma? See, this very question has problems here. If you say, what is the freedom of a car? Then it's an external object. We can figure out, oh, there's an engine, there are wheels, and there are problems with the wheels, and this, and that can do certain things. We can know the nature of that thing, right? What is freedom of Jivatma? Oh, by the way, have you seen the Jivatma? No. Do you know something about the Jivatma? I just know about myself a little bit. I don't even know my own friends, or even my own wife or children or parents or friends. Nobody. I don't know who they are. I don't even know if they have a Jivatma or not. I haven't seen their Jivatma. Look at the complexity of the problem. People think, they just take it to, freedom and determinism. Write a paper on it, write a book on it, it's fine. But how many complicated factors are there? We don't know the nature of jivas. We don't know the nature of indriyas. We don't know the nature of buddhi. We don't know the nature of God. For a person who is completely submerged in this world of maya, ignorance, darkness, what does it all mean? Very little. We still want to think about it freely, learn about it, but hopefully God within us will help us all and give us the right knowledge regarding freedom and regarding free will and determinism. That's the only hope. Any other questions?
Yes, that's the question.
I have actually posted a question. So you had mentioned about the Jiva being only 1 by 5 as a doer. If that is the case, then should they experience only 1 by 5th of the phalam as well? So basically, if we do something, do we only get 1/5 of that?
Very good question. I don't have a very good answer for you, honestly. I have to think about this very deeply. But my initial feeling tells me that among the 1 by 5, 2 of them are animate, sentient, and three of them are inanimate, right? Body is inanimate, senses are inanimate, actions are inanimate. Jiva and Paramatma are animate or sentient. Hence, the Punya or Papa probably should belong to Paramatma or Jivatma, right?
Right. Yes.
We only have 2 choices.
Right.
But you know how what happens. God does not get affected. He is not foolish. He will happily give us the effects of Punya and Papas to the Jivatmas. So you know the answer.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, okay. Partha Srinivasan is writing something. He says, you're right, Jiva is the doer with the intent to enjoy phalam. Paramatma does not want the phalam and does not push us into karma. The other 3 are inanimate, like you said. Oh, yeah. This reminds me of a wonderful Upanishadic analogy. Dva Suparna Sajuja Sakhayo. What this verse says, you can go into details of the verse later. There are two birds perched on the same tree of Prakriti. The two birds are, one is a Paramatma and the other is Jiva. Ekah Pippalamatti. The Jivatma happily is picking away and eating the fruits. The fruits of the tree of Prakriti are Punya and Papa. There are two kinds of fruits. And the Jiva is happily enjoying eating up all these fruits. Anyan Anashnan Abhichakashiti. The other bird, without eating any fruits, Abhichakashiti. That means just as a witness, is looking around. Anashnan Anyo Abhijak Anyan. That's what I think is the whole verse is just like that, I think. So this is the story of life. How beautifully Upanishad tells us, using an analogy of two birds perched on the same tree. So with this, we will end this lecture. Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Shri Krishna Parabrahmane Namaha, Shri Lakshmi Nrsimha Parabrahmane Namaha, Shri Lakshmi Hayavadana Parabrahmane Namaha. Now I'm going to end the broadcast.
Thank you, Krishna.
If you have